Leave the 2030 agenda before it's too late. Today I'm going to fill you in on some of the world's most dangerous policies and how the biggest governments in the world have been limiting and removing your personal freedoms and prospects for a bright future. Plus, I will reveal where you can move to find more freedom. The 2030 agenda is plaguing citizens of so many Western countries with strict policies that are put in place to limit your personal freedoms, not only for the time being, but for your entire life. Let's get started talking about the 2030 agenda that is being looked at and also implemented by the United States government. When we think 2030 agenda, one of the biggest concerns that comes to mind is of course the topic of central bank digital currencies and how these digital versions of money will eventually and ultimately limit your personal freedoms and day-to-day life. Let's get real. They may implement a policy that says that any subscriptions, any books, any materials that you may purchase that is labeled as extremists or misinformation could lead to severe penalties, including the following. They could be flagging your account for further monitoring, inspecting all expenditures that are happening on your individual account. Once a flag has been triggered, it may stay in place for a prolonged period of time. Increased scrutiny for your social media and political activity could be two more things that may happen should your account get flagged. A very big concern is that if your digital money is truly digital, the central bank could say, hey, you know what? We don't want you to keep spending money on certain things. So in fact, they could start limiting the amount of money that you spend in any given category, or they could restrict your spending altogether, cutting it down to zero. This kind of strategy could be used not only to control your spending in the sense that governments want you to be spending money on other things, but it could also be used as a control mechanism to impact inflation. Something very real that actually did happen in Canada is that participants of the Freedom Convoy were actually punished by the Canadian government. We could see a similar scenario break out in the United States when protests do happen, and participants of these protests could get punished by the federal government for participating. Digital IDs, vaccine mandates, other forms of digital control mechanisms could be used to benefit the government and restrict personal freedoms of everyday citizens. Possibly one of the biggest concerns digital currencies entail, including those backed by the federal bank, the Federal Reserve of the United States, if and when it will be implemented, is that nothing will be anonymous anymore. The government will see where you're spending your money. The government will see what you're doing financially. The government will know everything about you. And how happy are you going to be if and when a government figures out that you are indeed spending money on things that perhaps you shouldn't be spending money on? The central bank digital currency is definitely part of the 2030 agenda and one of the biggest fears people have living in this very decade. Gender equality is another big concern Americans have living in this very decade. Feminism's influence on feminine masculinity is more present than ever before. It ultimately leads to decreasing relationships. What our government is doing, they are really changing the concept of what a woman used to be. A woman used to stand for feminine qualities, being the caregiver, playing the feminine role in the household. With the implementation of modern-day feminism movements and policies set by the US government, as well as other Western governments worldwide, women are no longer able to live their femininity like they used to. Women had to step into the masculine role, being the provider, going to work, generating an income, saving money, and doing things that are actually a man's job. And because of that, the family balance is completely out of control. And many argue it no longer exists. Because now, in a modern-day American family, we have two masculine figures doing the parent role. As it has proven to be true more often than not, having two masculine parents does not really create a prosperous family. The good old days when a woman could emotionally depend on her husband, and where the man could take care of the woman financially, so the woman felt emotionally stable to be at home, take care of the kids as well as her husband. Those days are over for good. Women no longer have the ability to dive into their feminine energy because the current world that women are living in, that American women are living in, is actually destroying the female quality altogether. This is a fact, and it is why modern-day relationships in America don't work anymore. Women don't want to get married because, first of all, they don't need to depend on a man like they used to. And second, because they're completely out of touch with their own feminine reality, their feminine nature. They don't want to have children anymore. All of this leads to decreasing relationships, decreasing family values, and the world that has become pretty unrecognizable. Women are avoiding motherhood and marriage because they can. However, many aren't happy with their choices because at the end of the day, one of the happiest things you can have is a happy family. And a happy family can only happen if you're married and if you can truly embody your feminine qualities. Now, what modern day American government has done is remove feminine qualities altogether, forcing women into masculine roles they're not happy with and that leave them out of touch with their feminine nature. All of these are facts that are proven. Many reports say that women are confused, intimidated, and out of touch with their feminine nature. This is what modern-day feminism has done to American women. It has destroyed American family values altogether. And it is one of the main reasons why so many Americans are looking to escape America for good. They want to live in a more conservative, traditional culture where old-school family values are still booming, where women like playing the feminine role how it should be, and where men can play the masculine role how it should be as well. Only if this balance is in place, plus you have God in the middle. Relationships that don't have God in the middle don't work anyway. A relationship of this world doesn't work. That's why we have very high divorce rates. That's why people don't want to get married, because they're living in this world. But a relationship isn't meant to be like this. A relationship, a truly successful relationship, can only work if God is in the middle, if the spirituality is in the middle. And if you remove a lot of the modern day elements of this very world that have destroyed relationships and marriages, only if we act in the faith of God and if we serve His glory, we may have a prosperous relationship and marriage. Equality doesn't work. Equality is a fallacy. Equality is an illusion that doesn't even need to be in place. Women can be equal without playing the masculine role. And this should be the goal of modern day feminism, not some of the policies that are put in place by the US government. Children need both, a father and a mother. Now that we have addressed two of the biggest issues surrounding the American 2030 agenda, and things that have already happened many decades ago in America, let's have a look at Canada's 2030 agenda and how it's been changing the lives of Canadian citizens for good. Canada is dealing with very similar issues like America, but there are a few more issues that Canada is dealing with on top of the ones that I mentioned before. Canada used to be a great country to immigrate to. Bill C-11 dictates to regulate online content. Many critics argue that it could limit what Canadians see online. It ultimately could create a government-controlled algorithm. Likewise, Bill C-18 is very concerning to many Canadians. There have been reports of certain media giants responding to this very bill, blocking Canadian citizens from accessing content from their sites. Supposedly all of this is being put in place to expand on hate speech laws, further balancing ethnicities within Canada. The rise in cost of living and economic anxiety are really draining many Canadians these days. Since the past crisis, Canada has seen an increase in food prices of a minimum of 10 to 20%, yet salaries have not increased by 10 to 20%. Likewise, rent throughout Canada's major metropolitans, Vancouver, Montreal, and Toronto, has skyrocketed, leaving many Canadians with no other option but to share a flat or to move back into their parents' home. Like Canada, the United Kingdom has implemented some seriously concerning anti-free speech laws that have been limiting British citizens. They are putting these laws in place to limit your personal freedom. There's no doubt about it. Why didn't they implement these laws decades ago? 10 years ago, 8 years ago? Why are they implementing these laws today? You see, this is a worldwide effort that's taken place, not just in the UK or Canada, but globally. Critics argue that removing certain content or limiting the freedom of speech rights of British citizens, especially limiting lawful content, is really seen as a trap for British citizens. There have been many incidents of arrests happening throughout the United Kingdom where British citizens were expressing their opinion freely, but it wasn't allowed to be talking about certain subjects. Citizens of the UK are facing higher taxes than ever before. The UK government has been cutting tax allowances in the UK. The capital gains tax allowance was reduced from £12,300 to just £3,000. The UK has also seen an increase in corporation tax. Certain benefits are being limited or removed altogether. And all of this is happening at a time where British citizens expected it the least. Obviously, there are labor shortages across the Western Hemisphere. So naturally, these countries open up their borders more easily, allowing immigration to flow through to fill these labor shortages. However, many citizens, including those of the UK and Canada, believe that they have less rights than they used to, and that immigrants, sometimes also illegal immigrants, get benefits that citizens don't get these days. The 2030 agenda is being rolled out in the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom. There are countries in this very world where the 2030 agenda is not happening, or it is not happening as rapidly, or it is not implemented as fully as in the countries that we mentioned. Very recently, Costa Rica pulled out of the 2030 United Nations agenda, an action that was criticized by many people worldwide. Costa Rica is certainly a freer country and a warmer country than the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom are. If you want to relocate to Costa Rica and escape the 2030 agenda, you may qualify for residency by income. Those with a passive income stream may relocate to Costa Rica permanently. Costa Rica welcomes entrepreneurs, investors, retirees, families, nomads, and people from all walks of life who have a passive income stream. You are required to prove a clean criminal record to qualify for Costa Rican residency. We haven't really touched on the past health crisis and how policies implemented, especially in the UK and Canada, have raised eyebrows. One country that stood out during the past crisis was Paraguay, a country located in the heart of South America. After addressing this issue personally and speaking to many Paraguayans right here in Asunción, Paraguay, where I'm located right now, I've learned that Paraguay had one of the most relaxed times during the past health crisis. Restrictions and lockdowns were in place for just 3 months. This sensible approach that the Paraguayan government took very early on during the past crisis really showed Paraguay's priorities and how the Paraguayan government is not focused on tyranny, but freedom. Paraguay is a very tax-friendly country, a country that welcomes citizens of the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Australia, and European Union. You can move to Paraguay pretty much permanently without proving economic solvency. It is one of the rare gems on this planet, a country that welcomes you without you contributing to the country, without you proving your economic status. This fact alone makes Paraguay a unicorn. A country rich in intrinsic value, rich in agriculture, food, water, electricity. A country with a booming crypto sector. A country that was built by immigrants. A country that will welcome you with open arms. And you can move to this beautiful country of Paraguay right here, right now. All you need is a clean criminal record, and you must be a citizen of the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, European Union, or Australia. I have made Paraguay my main base because I truly believe in Paraguay's future and that Paraguay will not become part of the 2030 agenda. Based on recent discussions that I had with a Paraguayan senator, his name is Gustavo Leite, I have learned that Paraguay is very much opposed to many of the modern day's policies that are being fully implemented in the European Union, UK, Canada, and throughout many countries worldwide. After this discussion with Senator Leite, I noticed that Paraguay is the right place to be spending time in, not only today, but throughout the 21st century. It is a country that's so open to immigrants, offering a low cost of living and a relaxed lifestyle. Uruguay is another immigrant-friendly country that will welcome you with open arms, assuming you have a fixed monthly income that allows you to live in the beautiful South American country of Uruguay. Uruguay is home to a very safe political environment. An 11-year tax exemption on foreign-sourced income. So the income that you qualify for when moving to Uruguay will not be taxed in Uruguay. You're going to get an 11-year tax exemption when moving to this bright and prosperous country in South America. If you're interested in escaping the 2030 agenda by moving to a country in Latin America, please book a consultation with me today. Go to nomadelite.com and click on book a consultation. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate your attendance, and I look forward to welcoming you to the next video.